I am the Animist, and you are listening to the Video and Company Podcast, a podcast where we talk about filmmaking and operating a video production business. Today's guest is Adam Sewell, who is a DP and co-founder of Digital Spark Studios, and they have a great portfolio. It's a great team. I've known some of the guys there for a while, and I really respect what they got going on. In today's episode, Adam talks about coming from the corporate background and creating a video production company with his business partner, Joshua Heber. So without further ado, here's Adam Sewell. For everyone who doesn't know you, can you just do a basic introduction of who you are and like where you're at right now, mainly with like Digital Spark or whatever?
Yeah, so my name's Adam, Adam Sewell, and I'm from England originally. I've been here for about 10 years now though. I run a company in partnership with my partner Joshua Heber called Digital Spark Studios, and we're a video production company in Charlotte, North Carolina. We do commercial, corporate. We have a wedding brand, so we do wedding videography and wedding photography. And yeah, it's about we've been doing that for about 5 years now total. So
When I've wondered, why did you always have the wedding brand separate from the others?
All right, so yeah, about 5 years ago, I met Josh, and we were working at a company called 3D Systems down in Rock Hill, and we both head up the video production side of that company, and we were doing all their marketing campaigns and all of their photography, everything from a creative standpoint, which involved media. That was Josh and I. So we got to know each other and worked together a lot over a short amount of time. When I came in, it only took us about 4 months before we realized that this is what we wanted to do, and we worked well together. So we would just kind of, talk about things that we wanted to do, talk about the future, and then decided after, like I say, 4 months of knowing each other that we'd put together a company. And so we filed our LLC. And for about 3.5 years, we worked on building that company while still at 3D Systems. So basically all we had was the evenings and weekends. And we fell into weddings that way because obviously, we're kind of limited to what we can do on the weekend, and weddings was something that we could, use as a creative outlet, and that's kind of how we fell into there.
So, because a lot of people start out with weddings, and I'm not really sure why the path starts. I guess a lot of people don't know not saying that you fall into this category, but like a lot of younger kids, they sometimes go like, I don't know what video should be for, but like, I really respect how you guys were doing like nights and weekends, just like a lot of us. Like you don't just kind of like start a company and like quit your job and just like hope everything comes in. You gotta do both at the same time. So what was it like being at 3D Systems and also being able to juggle that like side project?
It was a lot of work. I don't know. I guess it was juggling to a certain extent, but it was just constant. It got to a point where we were working 100 hours a week easily, where we would go to work at 7 in the morning, work until 5, and then until ridiculous hours in the evening every day, because we had all the editing and stuff that we did from the weekends. And then on the weekends we would do weddings that were either from like 12 hours to like 16, 17 hour days, when it comes to like the Indian Hindu weddings and stuff like that. So it became really, really long work weeks, and there was probably a point where we were getting a little bit tired, more physically than mentally, because we knew what we wanted to do, and we knew that the end goal was to get out of working that 9-to-5 life. So I mean, we were prepared to put in these honest hours in the front end in order to get to where we wanted to be. So it was a lot of work, and if I believe that if you really desire to like be somewhere and do something, that it doesn't necessarily become a mental drain if you truly want to be there, as much as it is a physical drain, because the body can only handle so much. But as long as you're focused and kind of have an idea of where you want to go, that's kind of like how we looked at it. So it was a long time coming, but just over a year ago now, we were able to financially get to a point where it made sense for us to quit our full-time jobs and put everything we have now into growing Digital Spark Studios as a company. So
right. And so did you ever have any kind of conflicts with the 3D Systems? Like was there ever any time where they're like, oh, we like, if they were to find out that you did this certain type of video, that like they might not be a fan of it? Or was that just because you were only doing weddings at that time, you didn't really have to deal with like any kind of industrial conflicts?
I would say 99.9% of the time they were extremely supportive. We were really friendly with most of the people there, and they really liked the work that we did while we were there. And I think to a certain extent they just wanted to keep us happy. And if we weren't having a conflict of interest, like for example, if we weren't going out and doing work for like a competitor or something like that, they were going to be fine with it. And as long as we weren't bringing our work outside of the 3D systems into the regular work day, there's not really much they could say about it. We were doing all of our work on the evenings and weekends, so we kept them happy. It was kind of like a mutual respect between the two parties, so it was really well.
That's really cool that they were like fully aware of it.
Yeah.
I had a similar thing where I worked at a mom and pop shop, and I did all their advertising, and they knew. Like every once in a while, they would get it like a little like, "Are you sure?" But I never really worked that much when I was doing that. Like it was not hard to juggle. I just like didn't have the traffic coming in at that time. But I wanted to backtrack a little bit. So how did you get to 3D systems? Like where did you start? Like with videography, was it like? Were you just, how did you get into video to begin with?
So I was definitely a late starter when it comes to video. I didn't really know how to work a camera properly until I got to 3D systems, and that's a lot of credit to Josh Hygge, because he's an extremely creative guy, and I kind of lent on him to just watched him and learned a lot from him like in a short amount of time. But in order to like get to that point, I played soccer in college at High Point University, and while I was there, one of my teammates was like a really enthusiastic musician. He was a rapper and made a lot of music, and we spent countless hours in the studio in the evenings, and this was kind of just as I was figuring out that I liked even creating in a certain any kind of platform. We found ourselves just in the studio. I was helping him out, just like basically hit and record and making sure the levels weren't clipping and stuff like that while he was in there like actually making the music. And we were in there till early hours in the morning, like multiple days a week, just messing around, basically having fun. And that led into maybe we can make a music video of the songs that we're recording. So I would either hold the camera or just help in any way that I could, just create things. And that's kind of where it all started. Like how I knew that I liked this stuff. I didn't know how to make a career out of it, but this was kind of like how the direction for me changed, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do going into college. And like I say, it took a little while for me to find out what direction I wanted to go in. But when I did, I went to NASCAR Media Group, and that was just a good way for me to stay in the country, because I needed that work visa in order to do that. And I was doing just the most boring job of all time, just ingesting media and archiving all the media that came from the races and stuff. So it was a way for me to like be in that world, but not necessarily in that world. I was there like ridiculous hours in the evening when like the media came back from the races and stuff. And I'd been following 3D systems for a long time, because they had a really, really big growth, I think back in 2013, I think it was, like the year before I joined, where their stock just went through the roof, and 3D printing was like this new thing and everything. Right. So I've been following them, and then we found out, that they were down in Rock Hill, South Carolina, which was obviously just down the road from where we were. And it was actually my wife that found the position on a job board saying they're looking for some video guy, and I was like, I don't really have any experience in that, but maybe I'll just give it a shot. So I did. I went in for a lot of interviews and didn't really have a reel or anything at the time, obviously, and made a couple of custom videos that I'm sure Josh, if you ever speak to him, would have some things to say about those, because they were terrible, but for some reason it worked. And and once I got in there and kind of blagged my way in there, if you like, it all started from there, and I just followed Josh, and he taught me a lot, so I owe a lot to him.
Oh, okay. So, like, what is the dynamic now at Digital Spark? Like, what's everybody's kind of like role, and like, where do you find yourself leaning towards the most? So
we're in an interesting place right now. I think there's a couple of things that we've always said at Digital Spark is that we want to keep our core team small. We're very, we have very high standards that we want to reach if we're going to bring someone in on more of a permanent basis or on an ongoing basis. So there's a certain kind of drive that we need to see in people in order to bring them in on like more of an ongoing basis. And the second thing was, if we're going to hire someone on a contract basis, they need to be way more talented than we are. So those are the two kind of things that we are. So we are a small team at the core. There's just 4 of us right now. But I'm taking up more of I guess a management role on organizing clients, engaging clients, and working on client relationships. And I still find myself on set like all the time as well. But as far as like growing the company from a corporate and commercial side, that's where I find myself more involved in that, and just these client relationship roles and developing and building new relationships.
Okay, so what are some things that you're doing now that you probably weren't doing, I don't know, like 9 months ago, and it's something that you've seen like growth in?
It's just talking to people on more of a personal level, because at the end of the day, you are talking to companies, but the people you're talking to are people. They're not the company; they are just people. And being able to develop those personal relationships, even if it's just like whether it's just like an inside joke or just getting a cup of coffee or whatever it is, taking it from offline to like an interpersonal relationship is I think something that I've found that's really important. And I'm learning every day. I'm definitely not an expert in the area, but it's something that I'm really interested in developing and just finding out what they really want from a creative side, and building those relationships and finding out the best way to like convert what they want into how we can deliver it in a creative way. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, actually, in that earlier show that I was telling you about, one of the things that we did touch up on, because my business advisor had given me a couple bit of advice, and one of the things that I wasn't doing at all is like in-person networking, because I can be back at my day job. I used to just DM and just like connect with people all day, and it's like 1 out of 100 you might get.
Yeah.
But when you get in person, it's like those odds slim so much more, because you can actually show who you are personally. And so like how do you get in front of these people to create these relationships?
That's a tough one. If we knew that, like it would be a lot easier. So it's a lot of different things. We're experimenting with things like video email, and then just word of mouth, just asking. If you want a referral from someone, just ask them. You never know, like they can say no. That's the worst thing that they can say, right? But it's something that is ever changing. I think in the world that we're in, is there's no one way which is going to be the best way to connect with the potential clients that are out there. As long as we just brought a social media person on who is now, because social media is not really like the way that we were kind of like driven. I was never really one to like to sit on social media and use it as a business tool, but it's so important that we found that void in our company, and it was something that we weren't really putting much attention to. So we brought someone in who is a professional at it, and that's just like another channel that we can use to utilize and get in front of potential clients. So just making sure that the funnel is full, and there's lots of different channels in which potential clients can come from, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think you guys are at a point where I'm trying to get to, and that's where like if there's something you're not good at but you need, you just hire it. So it's like social media, like I'm trying to learn social media, or I'm trying to learn like sales, like hard sales and like marketing tactics and stuff like that. But it's like, eventually I'd like to just hire it. It's like, this isn't what I signed up for. I just wanted to like create videos and create commercials,
right,
and stuff like that. And, getting artists is easier for me, just because like, that's kind of like my shtick. Like everybody just knows like, oh, he's the music video guy. So like more or less getting the commercial and advertising and, that kind of stuff, corporate stuff, it's like a lot harder to market for that, and it's all based on like personal relationships. So like a lot of like network meetings, or just like even coming to train for this podcast, like was kind of felt like a networking thing, because you have like 6 people in a room and they're all curious as to what you do, and it's like it's just getting in front of people, and I'm just such a introvert that it's so hard to
That's
do that.
That's the problem in this industry, I think, as a whole. Everyone is an introvert in this. Well, most people are introverts.
Yeah.
I'm an introvert at heart. I'm trying to get out of that, but this is new for me, sitting in front of a microphone. So
yeah, or being on camera.
Exactly.
I tell you what, it all it takes is once or twice, and then it becomes a lot easier, because I hate doing this, but it's something that like you're kind of forced to do. Where like I noticed that like I would tell these companies like, oh, we need to do this kind of campaign. And it's like, I'm not even doing that kind of campaign for my business, so I can't really complain like when I'm not growing the way that I'm telling them they can grow.
Right.
And it's like, you just got to like, they have to get to know who you are and your business, and the way that works is like being there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like on the technical side, like who would you say is like the main DP at Digital Spark? Is it you, or is it Josh, or do y'all both balance between the two?
We definitely balance. Josh is an extremely good director. Like I said earlier, he is extremely good at. He's just a creative person in general, and that spills across all different facets of the company, whether it's idea generation or concepting or storyboarding. He's an extremely talented, graphic artist as well. So he can really create something out of nothing, which is something that I've always admired about him. Like the stuff that he does from a graphic and motion graphic standpoint is, I'd never be able to do it.
So he's big on the After Effects.
Yeah, he's extremely talented in After Effects. He's really good at that stuff. And like I say, like just taking a blank canvas and making something from it is something, not from a graphic standpoint, I've never really been able to like visualize and like build something from from the ground up. From a story standpoint, my mind is probably more in that way. But we all play part in the cinematography. I think my brain is probably more oriented towards the cinematography side. I love the light and everything, and I'm probably more at appeal. Like I like what the camera is seeing as opposed to like the meaning behind it.
Yeah.
Which Josh is probably more tailored towards. But then you got Taylor as well, who is an extremely talented director and is so creative as well. So it's really good having those two guys in there, because we'll sit around a table and the amount of good ideas that will come up from completely different angles around the same subject is just like I'm just kind of like blown away most of the time by what they come up with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they think so differently as well. So it's always refreshing to have like completely different ideas around the same thing.
Well, so like, what are some influences on like your style visually?
I do like dark and moody. I just do. It just appeals to my eye a little bit more. I like the way that the shadows interact and how like the light and shadows create shapes, and the way that the light falls across certain things. It just appeals to my eye. Yeah. More so than the light and airy look. It just always has.
I mean, that's how I would describe your look, and it's also like something that like I've noticed, especially with like commercial clients, that like they don't see what we see when we see like dark and moody. Yeah. They see like, oh, somebody needs to turn on a light. It's like, no, there's like so many lights on, you probably don't know, but like we flagged them all off. So, right. But like when it comes down to like dark and moody, it feels like a lot of it has to do with like color wise, like there's a way more color contrast in like the dark and moody look rather than the commercial. And like, do you feel like practicals are like a big part in that?
Of course. Yeah. I always try and integrate a practical in there somewhere, as long as it makes sense, obviously. Like for an interview, for example, if it's in like a house or something, I always try and get a lamp in the background on a dimmer and just bring it all the way down, even if it's not influencing like the exposure of the actual frame. If, for example, like we'll put a lamp in the background and then we'll maybe bring a tungsten light in to emulate that lamp light. It's way too dim for it to make sense to be actually lighting the subject, but there's camera trickery. It makes sense from like a visual standpoint.
Right. And so, do you ever run into issues with like how you visually want a project to be with like the client, like kind of not feeling the same thing, or is it pretty much like, does everybody kind of feel what you feel?
We try to adapt. Obviously, we want clients to come to us because of the way that we do things. That's the dream, and that's everyone's. I think if you own a video production company, that's the ultimate goal: is that they're coming to you because they like what you do as a production company. But that's not always the case, is it? They might like your work, but they want to do it in like a more of a light and airy way, and we're always going to respect that. Right. You can't argue with the client in that regard. If they have a vision and they have a brand that is more bright and less contrast, you gotta go along with it. You can't just have this high contrast, dark and moody piece in the middle of like a whitewash of like toothpaste commercials, for example. So. That's we have to adapt, but it's always nice when they come to us for our style.
Exactly. That's the dream. Yeah, essentially.
Absolutely.
So like, what would you say? Because how much I know you do music videos. I know you've been doing the Chloe Lowry?
Yeah.
Okay, Chloe Lowry. Like how much other music videos are you guys doing, or is it pretty much like that like series of projects, and then also like all the commercial and wedding stuff?
Yes. So we've done a few music videos in the past. We did one recently for Britt Drodzer. I think I'm saying the name right. I hope I'm saying
Are
the
they
name
local?
right. She's an artist. Yeah, she's local to Charlotte. She's extremely talented. She did a song for ice hockey movie recently, and it was like the title song. And we did a music video for that, which is going to be integrated with some footage from the actual movie itself. But music video is not necessarily something that we market for.
Right.
We don't put it out there. We do music videos. They're fun
Yeah.
because it's just a good creative outlet, and it's fun to experiment with light and stuff and everything in them. But it's not necessarily something that we have put much energy into marketing for.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not saying that we wouldn't, do more.
Is that like just on the company level as like a collective, or is that like individually? Like, is there like, do you do any like outside creative projects like in the field?
Most of the time, most of the outside creative projects we do are just, within the company,
Just
if
for
that makes
fun.
sense. So
Yeah.
like Josh Taylor and I will get like together a small team, and we'll go do our own like little passion projects
Yeah.
and stuff.
Like
Just
the tapestry thing or
Yes.
something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was all Taylor, by
That
the
was a
way.
great video.
That was awesome.
That was phenomenal.
Yeah, he killed that.
So no narrative then. That's not something you're interested in.
Not so much, not yet at least. Right now we're more in the commercial and corporate world. The corporate world is probably like the backbone of what keeps the company going,
Bread and butter.
if you like. And I think that we'll always be doing that. The narrative is definitely maybe one day. I think we still want to keep developing as commercial cinematographers and a commercial production company. And what comes from that, or what comes from it, I don't really have long-term goals, which is kind of weird to some people.
I guess we can scratch off the last question.
Is that the last question? So yeah, it's a bit weird. Like some people ask me like, what are the long-term goals, like for me personally, and then for the company, and it's so hard to do that because I've never really been one for long-term goals. I've never really been one for short-term goals. Now that I think about it, I don't really know. It's kind of a weird thing to say, but I just kind of do what I think's best for either me and my family or the company, like one thing at a time. Sometimes if something falls into place and think, oh, okay, maybe internal communications is good for the company. Maybe we can shift a few things around to make what makes sense for that. But I've never been really one for that. I never really had the goal to like play soccer in college or anything.
Yeah.
And that just happened. And then I never had the goal to be in video production. And then the job interview came up for 3D Systems, and then I guess that was the direction. It's never really been one thing that I've been, and it kind of hurts in a certain way because I wish I had more time, and I wish I knew I wanted to be in video production earlier because I would have had more time to like be in like the field and practice and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. When it comes to goals, it's I've never really had solid ones.
That's interesting because I've never heard that.
No.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's good to be different.
Yeah. But, it's been all right so far, I think. We'll see.
It's probably good because I set a lot of goals. Like I said, I think when I was 18, I said I'll be in Sundance by 27, and I have like 9 months left. On that one, so.
You can do it. You've still got the
can.
time.
Yeah,
You've still got the
time. But okay, that's interesting. So like, do you find it's interesting how you said that visuals, like you're really into like how you create the visuals. Mm-hmm. And the other part of the team might be like more of like how like we can create like meaning behind it. So would you say you're more of a technical person when it comes to like the visual side?
Absolutely. Yes, I definitely am more of a technical thinker when it comes to like using the camera and using the lights and stuff and making sure everything is I don't want to say by the book because that kind of doesn't really work when it comes to cinematography because by the book is kind of like counterintuitive. But when it comes to like knowing what I want from a camera setting standpoint and from a lighting standpoint and where I want specific lights and what diffusion I want for each thing, I kind of have an idea. As soon as I see the room, I'm like, all right, this is where the light should go. We should flag off this window. We should black out these. We should hit some diffusion from the outside of this window, for example. It comes together quite quickly, and that might be a bad thing because I kind of get a little bit strong-headed when it comes to that because I know exactly what I want as soon as I see it. And there might be, and there probably is some better options for it, but it's just kind of how my head works when it comes to that stuff.
Well, I mean, based on like everything I've seen, it looks like everything you guys do comes out like great. Like it seems like it goes straight from your head to like the set.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've always like looked up to that and respected that. But so like you're not super scientific about it. Like, do you use like light meters, and do you like have to like?
No, we don't use light meters. We use the Sunseeker app.
Okay.
To know where the sun's going to be coming through. Like if we're inside, if it's going to be coming out of certain windows, and if we're outside, if how we're going to keep shooting into the shadow and stuff like that. So when it comes to that stuff, I think everyone needs to be on top of that. But as far as light meters go, no. We just have calibrated monitors that we go off of.
Oh, what do y'all use?
We use small HD.
Small HD.
Yeah.
It's always confused me. Like I feel like how in depth should I be about like the cinematography part, because it's like there's people who like could hit a light meter and tell me like the ratios on that. And they're like, I need you to get me these ratios, and it's like I'm right now I can't be on a set and do that, but I feel like so many people like that are at a very successful level or like on a technical level, like can create like some great imagery, still might not know how to do that. It feels like it's almost like, where is that really needed, and is it like only kind of like a like clubbish like Hollywood type thing that we need to like learn that stuff?
I think it's beautiful because it's like there's no right answer, is there?
Yeah.
You have people doing amazing things, and they're looking at the back of like a Sony A7S monitor, and that's all they're using. Like, they're not using any external monitors. They're not using light meters or anything. And then you've got people who live and die by the light meter, and they're kind of old school in the way that they want to get those ratios and stuff. But that can all be achieved. Those ratios can be achieved using false color.
Yeah.
It's just a different workflow. It's a digital workflow.
Do you use false color much?
Every now and then.
Okay.
Every now and then.
Because I just got it on the monitor that I've been using, and like I'm interested in using more, but like every time I pull it up, it's like on a paid shoot, and I'm like, I'm not gonna use this moment to learn that.
Right.
Like, but yeah, because I hear so many people talk about like how false color is like just pretty much their go-to.
Yeah.
On like really big jobs.
It's like paint by color. It's like the simplest exposure tool I think there is.
Yeah.
It really is. It just tells you exposure of everything in the frame.
So like, do you have any like favorite gear at the moment that's not camera or lens? Because I feel like that's too easy.
We like our Ronin too. That's been a beast for us.
That's not the one that just came out. That was...
No, the Ronin 2 is the big boy.
Okay.
The big guy that is really, really heavy and leaves you like needing to lay down at the end of the day if you don't have a ready rig. How heavy is it? Oh, it's heavy, dude.
Like 15?
I think when it's all kitted out, it's probably like 50 pounds.
Oh, with like, the camera on it?
With the camera and everything on it,
Jesus.
At least. And then, so you have to wear the ready rig with it, which is like a backpack. Looks like Dr. Ock from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. We used the Movi Pro once on our Trek shoot, and it just really wasn't. The batteries didn't last as long, and it wasn't as powerful as the Ronin 2. The Ronin 2 can last forever, and it has really good remote control, and it's just a beast. It can handle everything you throw at it, everything we've thrown at it so far. So
yeah,
that's been really nice to have. It's kind of like limiting to a certain extent once you get it on there. But yeah, that's probably my favorite bit of gear right now.
I've actually just gotten into gimbals. Actually, like I think last month I bought a gimbal used because I had been using Steadicam for so long, but like it's starting to get to my back because I don't use a vest. I just use it like freehanded because as long as the setup's like 10 to 12 pounds, like I can do like long takes and then just take breaks or whatever. But it's starting to get to my back. So I just got into gimbals. Actually, the first time was when I did that shoot with Taylor and Raleigh. Yeah. And I was petrified. I was like, ugh.
Was it the Crane?
It was the Crane.
Yeah.
It was the Crane one. And I ended up getting the Crane V2 on accident. I wanted the one and the V2 came, and I'm just not going to complain about that.
No.
So. Of
course.
Yeah.
It's bonus.
Well, do you have any like techniques, like favorite techniques you're doing right now, like specifically with like lighting? Because I'm curious, like I would love to like see some like behind the scene photos of like y'all's lighting diagrams.
Yeah.
Because it feels like there's a lot of layers to it. but I feel like I might be over imagining, and it's like pretty simple, but like just something that I'm not seeing.
Oh man, that's a tough one
Don't
because
spill your secrets, but
no, well, I wouldn't call them secrets. It's tough because I mean it depends on like what we're trying to go for, what emotion and what feel we're trying to go for. As a general rule, I always try to shoot into the shadow. So by that I mean the light is usually coming from behind, and then we just use either bounce or something like that to make that light a little bit more rappy, and kind of fill in if we're talking about a face, like this light, for example, from behind. Instead of splitting it down the middle, maybe bring some bounce in and just kind of keep the fall off going across the face.
right.
But making sure the shadow side is always camera side. That's just something that a rule that I try to live by when it comes to lighting. Whether it's just turning off interior lights in a house or something like that, just to make sure that there's no, light just being flooded from all different directions. Just a way to keep shape and contrast.
Yeah, I feel like shooting into the shadow I think it's something that I recently heard about, not too recently, like probably within the past 2 years, but I'd never heard that like the actual like term shoot into the shadow. And then I'm like, I don't know if I do that too often. And then I would never hear other people talk about it, but you see it a lot.
Yeah,
and then
you do
like
see it a lot.
Backlighting in general, like I used to never backlight.
Right.
like always like did side lighting with like bounce or diffusion or something like that. And then I don't know what it is. I guess like that moody phase is kind of like getting a little mainstream, and I backlight everything. It's this, but I don't know. Just and then I go back and I look at like shoots that I did like 3 years ago where I backlighted and didn't even realize what I was doing, and I was like, that's why they look better.
That's
than
why they
my
look
other
exactly.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's crazy when you like first starting out. You do something that looks good and you don't realize why.
Yeah.
And you just like, if only I knew back then.
Yeah.
Actually, why it looked good.
And every time I listen to like the Wandering DP, he's like talking about how terrible front lit is. And now anytime I'm on any set and someone thinks about front lighting, I'm like, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, there's sometimes where it makes sense. Again, it's hard to say gender. That's just what I think most of the time going into a shoot is I'm trying to achieve is backlighting it.
Do you ever like look at just a random thing, like even just like something out of a magazine, and you're like breaking down like how they lit it?
Yeah, it's a curse, dude.
Yeah.
You can't watch a movie without breaking down scenes. I don't know. It's tough, man. I used to be able to enjoy movies, and now you're looking at it and thinking about what the DP is doing there, because obviously like they're amazing. Like you watch like a Deakins thing, like Blade Runner, for example, and like every frame is just so beautiful, and you're just like, man, what is he doing here? Obviously, like he's got crazy budgets and big lights and stuff to work with, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I wouldn't be able to do anything that he's doing there.
And it's wild that you go back and you see some of his older stuff, like Revolutionary Road. I think it's almost like 15 years old, and it's still it's literally a movie about the mundane, but it's stunning. Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, he's a genius.
Yeah. Who are some other like DPs that you like look up to a lot?
So obviously, like Deakins is awesome, but I can't pronounce his last name because he's an Asian dude and it's quite complicated. But his first name's Kaname, and I think it's like Kaname Onoweyu. That might be really far off, but he's been my favorite DP for a while now. He does a lot of commercial work, and it's not necessarily any narrative stuff, but his work is amazing. I'll try and get you like a Vimeo link. I don't know how you're going to deliver this, but you can post it in there.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
But yeah, incredible
I'm
work.
Unfamiliar.
Yeah.
Are there any brands that you can think of that like he's worked on?
Yeah, he's worked with a lot of like high-end like fashion and makeup, like Chanel and can't think of the ones off the top of my head, the actual brands. I can just see the visuals like really clearly.
Is it like chic, and is it like Hygge or moody?
He does a lot of different stuff, which is why I really respect him. Like he has a lot of dark and moody like music video stuff, and it's just like incredibly creative. And the directors that he worked with and the creative that he has to work with is incredible as well. So obviously that plays a big part in it. But just the visuals, like I say, he's done anything from like stuff that looks like a Gap commercial, like nice and bright and trendy and stuff, to like super moody stuff. So I can respect his versatility and the stuff that he's been able to do. So yeah, he does some really nice stuff.
Is there anybody else?
Not really. no.
Really?
I don't really follow them
I
too
could see
hard.
you liking Bradford Young. Like you'll have a similar kind of style.
Yeah,
a little
I don't
bit.
know that guy.
Bradford Young.
Oh, Brad. I've heard the name.
Yeah.
I don't really follow him or anything.
Arrival, Selma.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Pretty much all the latest Villeneuve. I don't know how to say his name. Denis Villeneuve.
Okay.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But yeah, he's real dark.
I need to pay more attention to the actual people behind the work, because I see work. Well, obviously everyone sees work, and I'm like, I really like that. Maybe I'll save that. But I don't look at the DP. I should give them more credit.
Well, I think it's cool that like you're in the commercial and corporate world, and it's like you're not necessarily like taking everything, like taking all your inspiration from like films and stuff like that. Because I feel like I don't think a lot of people pay attention to ads really anymore, and I don't have cable. So when I'm like at my family's house or at someone else's house and there's cable on, and they hate when the commercial's on, and I'm like, this is when I'm paying attention because I'm enjoying all of it.
Right,
like,
yeah.
Wells Fargo commercial, it's like, it's to everyone else, they don't care, but it's like, this is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And they're like, it looks fine. I'm like, no, it's gorgeous.
Right.
But it's cool that you have that kind of influence in that field that you're actually in.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I really, to be honest, I kind of thought y'all did a little more music videos, but I can understand why it's something you don't market. It's kind of like it's a difficult market. The back end is not fun.
The back end is not fun. You're right.
No.
To me, we've probably done like 20 music videos altogether. Maybe.
But how many different artists?
Probably like 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we did like 13 for Chloe.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, we did her whole album up in. We went to Virginia for like the first 6 or 7. Then we did some in Charlotte. We actually filmed a couple in our studio. One that's releasing this week, actually, I think, called Dirty Disco. That's a fun one. We did that. That was a fun one. It was like completely just spur of the moment. There was not really any planning. It was completely produced in the edit, and it was basically like an acid trip. And we went to like a nightclub, had drag queens and everything.
Is that the one with the pool table?
Yes.
That pool table shot is like my favorite like frame I've seen from you guys.
Yeah. So that was just that was extremely simple setup, but it worked out. We like I said, we got NDAs at the front door of this nightclub, and we went in the pool table room and did a couple of performance scenes in there. And after we were done, the nightclub started to fill up. We went up and just started shooting B-roll up in the nightclub.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was completely like non-scripted, just go out and shoot and get some crazy media. And we did, and then we produced it in the edit, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It's basically an acid trip the whole way through.
That's how any good music video starts.
Yeah.
But and I recently saw one that I can't remember if y'all were promoting it or if she was promoting it, but it's one where she's like looking up and there's like stars and it's a night sky.
Yeah.
And then I saw one shot where it looked like she had the back to the camera and like she had this like rim of light going around her, and there was like this crazy VFX shot of the stars. And I was curious how you guys shot that because I've done similar shots, and I was curious how similar ours were.
So that was extremely simple. That was a really simple setup. So it was dusk, like the sun had gone down, but it still illuminated the sky just enough. And that was Josh in post production, by the way. So basically, we just took a light, like an aperture 300D, and just put it right in front of her. So the light's right there, shooting this way, so it gives her a rim light, so she has some separation from the background. And then we just replaced the sky in After Effects, just using like a tolerance map. So we pulled out the sky because it was darker than the rest of the frame. Just pulled that out and replaced it with a time lapse of the night sky.
So instead of just like adding stuff to it, you kind of just replaced everything around her. Essentially,
yeah,
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so the floor and everything was obviously still. It's just the sky that was replaced.
Right.
Yeah,
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was. That was a cool one as well, because that concept came up the night of the video as well. That was just like an interlude, and Josh did a really good job. And that day, it was probably the wind was probably upwards of like 60 miles an hour, and we were trying to like mount the 6x to make some sunlight, some moonlight, and man, it was like a sail. They were in this old cabin in the middle of like Hot Springs, Virginia, and we've got this 6x roped to the side of the building, as diffusion, and like the wind is just whipping through, and I don't know how we managed to get the shot, but it worked out in the end because, man, that was some of the strongest wind I've ever seen.
If you had any advice for someone who is doing the nights and the weekends,
Yeah.
and they're trying to, so basically, I hope the information that the people I bring on give is going towards the kinds of people that like I was like 5-6 years ago, where it's like I'm shooting on the weekends, I'm shooting at night, I have a day job, but it's like I don't want to just do that forever. I want to be able to break out, and you could call it form a company, or you could just call it where it's like that is your job. And I remember Matt Workman said, you're not a DP until it pays for your lifestyle.
Right.
So the moment like no other money was paying for like how I lived, I was like, okay, I'm finally a DP.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, I actually got good.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone that's in that position and they want to get from point A to point B?
Well, I'm going to start with a harsh reality in the fact that it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
There is a certain amount, there's a certain mindset and a certain drive that you have, I think, in order to get out of the 9 to 5. Some people, although they won't admit it on the surface, are happy with the 9 to 5. They like the security, and that's absolutely fine. You know, it's nice having a secure paycheck and having healthcare and all that stuff, and for a lot of people, that's the way to go. And you know, for the people that want to get out, truly want to get out, you just have to you've got to suck it up. And, you know, for me and Josh, it was 3 years of no life outside of work. Really, we had to just hustle. We worked every night and almost every weekend in order to get to a place where our salaries we were making less in our salaries than we were in our part-time work, and that just takes a lot of work. It takes you've just got to envelop yourself in the industry. You have to be learning all the time. You've got to be reading, learning from people who are better than you and who have done it successfully, and you know, just get it done, because there's no easy way to it.
Yeah, there's no secret formula. It's like the consistency. And I'm just curious, because we didn't really talk about the wedding brand too much, or necessarily just doing weddings in general.
Right.
I have a weird track record with weddings, and so I don't market for them. I don't really do them. It's pretty much like a friend thing.
Yep.
Like if I'm shooting your wedding, we're good friends.
Yep.
But how do you guys feel about doing the weddings back then? Like, were you super passionate about doing the weddings? And how about now that you have like this commercial client base and like portfolio, like do you still feel the same way about weddings? Are you passionate about it, or is it kind of like just we have this is our brand and it is also bread and butter, like it's what keeps the lights on, like?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that?
So weddings will always be part of our business. They obviously have got us to a point where we could, you know, focus more on the commercial side and corporate side, but we will always do it, and we'll always improve in what we're doing. Whether it's, you know, obviously it started off with Josh and I on every set, and then Josh and I edit in every video and everything, and that's not necessarily sustainable if we want to build a business across two different industries, if you like. So we are always trying to improve it, and by improving it, that sometimes means bringing in people who are extremely passionate wedding filmmakers and people who are better at it than us. So that's kind of, I think, our next step is building out the wedding brand by building out teams that can do, you know, the kind of wedding videos that we like to do, but can, you know, from a step up perspective, like they need to improve the business in a way that, you know, it continues the passion, because we are passionate about wedding videos. Like the reason we started doing them is because they're stories that need to be told, and it was a way of telling them for us, and a creative outlet for us to do it in video form. So we're trying to build a team out that is as dedicated and as passionate as we were, or we are, but just so we can have some more freedom to, you know, manage the clients and grow the business in different ways as well. So that's kind of where we are. We're looking for editors and freelancers. So if anyone wants to
go
film wedding, just shoot me an email.
We'll definitely put links in there. I don't know how regional this will be. It's really, I'm just like,
dude, it's fun, man.
So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. If you want to plug anything, you can do the jobs. Plug any kind of material.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can check us out on Instagram and Facebook, Digital Spark Studios, and Digital Spark Weddings on both platforms. Keep up with what we're doing. Yeah, and if anyone's interested in wedding filmmaking or editing wedding films, feel free to drop us a line, an email, contact@digitalsparkstudios.com.
And I'm going to try to see if we can get Joshua and Taylor on here soon.
You should.
Yeah.
You should get Josh on. He'll be fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it, man.
Cool, man. Thanks for having me.